Alright, Misfits Boxing is coming out with a game. I've seen a bunch of different reports going over this game announcement, but I've also heard some people saying it's just rumors. I'm just going to go ahead and assume that it is happening, the reports are true, and I'm going to go over what I think each fighter's rating should be. I know all the fighters I'm going to mention are not signed under Misfits, but I want to mention them, and it's what I think their rating would be if they were in the game. I got a lot of names on this list here, so I'm just going to go straight into it. Up first, we got Halal Ham. I'm giving him a 70. I have not been impressed with Halal Ham's performances for how long he's been in this game. I feel like we should have seen some more improvement by this point. That's why it's a 70. Up next, we got Ginty, the man who fought Halal Ham in probably one of the most boring Misfits fights of all time. Also not impressed, but he won the fight. I'm giving him a 71. Moving on up, we got Chairdleys next. He's only had one fight against Jay Swingler. That fight was short, clearly a mismatch. He probably shouldn't have been in there with him. But from what I've seen so far, a 73. Up next, we got one of the greatest boxers of all time, Fusi, coming off of his retirement fight against Deji. I saw he's gonna do some commentary or some type of deal with Misfits. Good for him. Boxing wasn't his thing. I'll give him a 75. After watching this fighter's last performance, he should probably be stepping into the MMA cage next. That is Chase Damore. We all know him for his precision and unmatched technique.
I like that. Oh boy. Oh my goodness.
Has a loss against Josh Bruckner, lost by disqualification in his last fight. I'm gonna give Chase a 77. B Dave is up next. He took a loss to Pineda, but I honestly can't blame him, as 99% of people in this world would lose to Pineda as well. He did bounce back with the tag team match with Pineda, and he will get better over time. I'm giving him a 78. Now, if this game ends up happening, this will be the fighter I will be playing with every single time. Pineda, #1 pound for pound influencer boxer. But for this game, they're going to have to bring down his rating just to make it fair. Because if you gave him his actual rating, it'd be more like a cheat code. I can't see him ever losing again. His fight against KSI was a fluke. I'm giving him an 80. Up next, we got Ryan Taylor. He was defeated by one punch against Swarms. But at the same time, he also went the distance against Slim. But I haven't seen too much since that, or even before that, giving him an 80. Next up is One Punch Man himself, Swarms. Lost against KSI, beat Ryan Taylor with one punch. Going up against Deji, that will change his rating 100%. So we'll have to wait and see that fight. For now, I'm giving him an 80 as well. Coming in with a score of 81 is iDubbbz. iDubbbz now has 2 losses on his record. One against Dr. Mike, one against Alex Wasabi. Showed his toughness in both fights, but ultimately still has a lot of work on. He might retire, he might fight again, we'll see. 81 is his rating. We got a heavyweight fighter up next. Recently fought on Misfits #7, Jake the Viking. I actually really enjoyed his fight against Minicon. Had a great jab, gassed out in the fight, but I want to see him again. He showed potential, 82 rating. Not going to say much here. Minicon is up next. Had that fight against Jake the Viking. Also had some previous fights. Is getting better. Needs to work on his cardio. Also an 82. Another heavyweight in this scene, Tempo Arts. Had a great finish against Godson in his last showing. I want to see him fight Minicon or Jake the Viking. Love watching him fight. He's getting better. 83 is his rating. Up next is the man who pulled off one of the biggest upsets in Misfits history, Ashley Roxu. Defeated King Kenny in his last performance. Didn't have the greatest performances up to that fight, but purely off beating King Kenny, he had to move up a couple points. He's been calling nearly everyone out, wants those difficult fights, and I respect that. I think his rating should be an 84. This next fighter recently announced his retirement from boxing, and that's Jay Swingler. Jay Swingler was an OG in the scene, provided us with some great fights. Maybe went out on a little bit of a disappointing fight against Nick Lamau, but overall showed a lot of talent, a lot of dedication to this sport while he was in it, and I'm happy we got to see him fight. I'm giving Jay an 84. Also coming in with an 84 is Nick Lamau. A lot of people think he won his fight against Jay Swingler, but it was definitely a close fight, no matter how you called it. I think he has some of the most potential in the entire scene, and I'm excited to see what he does next. 84. Moving on to the next fighter, Tom Zanetti. Disappointing outcome for him in the first round of the Kingpin tournament. Fought a good first 2 rounds against Jarvis in that Kingpin tournament. Needs to work on his gas tank. 85 rating. I have a lot of people rated 85, so I'm going to try to fly through them. And next up is Deji. Deji is a big name in this scene, but he still only has one win, and it's against Fusi, who was towards the bottom of this rating list. He's looking to get his second win coming up soon against Swarms. That performance could definitely boost his rating, but I think I just need to see more from Deji, and this is his opportunity to do it. Also with an 85 rating is Whindersson Nunes. Whindersson, also participating in the Kingpin tournament, is now one of the biggest names in the entire scene. All of the crowd was there for him. Also didn't get to see the most out of him in his fight. Whindersson didn't have to show all he has in his arsenal, and his fight against King Kenny will prove a lot and help us see where he is at. 85 rating for now. Moving on quickly, we got Josh Bruckner. He was the boogeyman in this scene until he got taken out by Salt Papi, the boogeyman slayer. No hate on that loss. That is a tough fight. Not many guys would take that fight. He could beat a lot of people in this scene, and I hope we get to see him fight again. I think an 85 rating is pretty fair. Also coming in with an 85 is JMX. Recently fought on the main event for Misfits number 7 against Le'Veon Bell. Showed that he has a lot of heart, but he also has a lot to learn. I'd say he's currently sitting around that 85 range. The last 85 on this list is Dr. Mike. Dr. Mike won his first fight against iDubbbz on the first Creator Clash and then lost a decision to Chris Avila. Shouldn't feel shame in losing that fight. We have seen Chris Avila is a pretty solid boxer, and I think Dr. Mike has a lot of potential in this scene. Now moving up, we got Austin McBroom. Won his first fight against Bryce Hall, now has taken 2 losses against a Nissan Gibb. His ankle injury is a little sus, I'm not gonna lie. But his only loss has been against a Nissan Gibb, who is a top fighter in the whole scene. I think he put away a lot of other people in this scene, and I wish we could see him fight somebody else besides Gibb to really gauge where he's at. 86 rating from me. Maybe that's a hot take, I don't know. Coming up next is also someone who gets hated on a lot in this scene, and that's Alex Wasabi. You may not have liked that he backed out against the KSI fight. You may think he's cringe, but he has had some solid performances. After his win against Deji, he has gone on to get another win against iDubbbz in the main event of Creator Clash number 2. He looked sharp, he looked quick, he looked like he is picking up this sport and is learning. 86 rating I think is deserved. The last 86 rating goes to Jarvis. He has come back to fight in the Kingpin tournament, won his first fight against Tom Zanetti. I didn't see that coming. He looked better than I thought he would. Definitely shows a lot of skill. Needs to work on his defense. Cannot eat that many shots against a Nissan Gibb. But I was overall impressed with his performance, and I look forward to that second round against Nissan Gibb. 86 rating. Now this next one may be a hot take as well, but let me talk about FaZe Temper real quick. Has a win over King Kenny. Got another win over Avert Flow, I think. Has a loss against Slim and a loss against KSI. 2 top 5 guys in this space he has losses to, and that's it. Would be a lot of guys. It is awkward to fight FaZe Temper. Very tall fighter, a southpaw. I'm giving him an 87 rating. Also with an 87 rating is King Kenny. Showed a lot of improvement in his last fight. I really liked his performance against my mate Nate, and I think he may have a good performance against Whindersson as well if he can keep this new style going. He is one of the most dedicated guys in this scene. 87 rating is what I'm thinking. Now Logan Paul is a guy who hasn't fought in this scene in a few years now. His last fight was against Floyd Mayweather. Some people might think this rating's a little high for him, but I'm giving him an 88. When you think about his competition, you got KSI, you got Floyd Mayweather, had a draw, then lost a decision to KSI, lost his fight to Floyd Mayweather even though there was technically not a winner, but also another guy I think would put away a lot of other fighters. Great jab. If he could show some aggression when he returns at some point in this scene, he will be very dangerous. Also coming in with a rating of 88 is FaZe Sensei. Now he technically lost against King Kenny on the scorecards, but I think he won that fight. He's one of the most technical guys in the whole scene. Not very consistent in the scene. I wish I would love to see him fight again. He is one of the fighters I look forward to fighting the most. I'd love to see him go against some of the top contenders in the scene just to prove where he's at, but I think he deserves an 88 rating. We're moving high up in these rankings now. Up next is a Nissan Gibb. Gibb has a lot of fights under his belt. I'm not even going to mention all of them. Won his first fight in the Kingpin tournament against Austin McBroom. His second win against him. This man just lives and breathes boxing at this point. He's my favorite to win the entire Kingpin tournament, and I'd also love to see him fight some top guys on Misfits. 89 rating for a Nissan Gib. Now coming in with a rating of 90, we have Slim. I've seen a little bit of Slim slander online recently, but I think he is one of the best fighters in the whole scene, especially on Misfits. He stayed consistent for such a long period of time, has had a couple where he went the distance, with his last fight being that decision win against Tom Zanetti. But do not sleep on Slim. He has proved people wrong before, and I just think a lot of people would have a hard time going against him. The pure amount of fights he has at this point gives him some great experience. I think a 90 is deserved. These next two fighters I'm just going to mention at the same time. I have Waleed Sharks and Dean the Great, both coming in with a rating of 90. Now these guys are having their rematch. It is confirmed, and it's one of the most exciting matchups in the entire scene. You can't mention one of them without talking about the other, and it's one of the best rivalries we've seen. I'm keeping them both at a 90 until we see that rematch. Then we can move one of them up, we can move one of them down. We'll have to see. For now, I think they're both at that 90 rating. We got 3 fighters left, with the third one being Salt Papi. Salt Papi completely took over this fight scene. He has had huge performance after huge performance, with his last fight being a win by knockout against Josh Bruckner. He has a fight coming up against Anthony Taylor, and if he puts on another great performance, he deserves a huge fight. He deserves a big name because he is one of the biggest stars already in the whole scene. Very talented fighter. Coming in with a 93 rating, I have KSI. The OG of YouTube boxing, has his huge fights against Logan Paul, has his weird fights against Pineda and Swarms. His last win was a knockout against FaZe Temper. Now looking to get another win against Joe Fournier coming up. KSI may not always be the most technical, but the amount of heart KSI shows in his fights is undisputed. He's always going to push the pace. He's never going to give up, and I think he's going to have a great performance against Joe. KSI is the second best fighter in the whole influencer scene, and he only comes second to his rival, Jake Paul. Now I know we're talking about a Misfits game, and Jake Paul would never be in this game, but you gotta mention him in this influencer scene if there were all to be in this fighting game. Clearly the number one as of now. Him and KSI always have that number one, number two spot. He has had some great performances, a knockout against Tyron Woodley, a decision win against Anderson Silva, had his loss against Tommy Fury by a decision. I don't think that sets him below KSI or Salt Papi. I think he holds on to that number one spot, and I would give him a 95 rating. Alright, let me know which of these ratings you disagree with. Which ones did I get spot on? I know there's definitely going to be some disagreements with some of them. I also probably missed a couple of fighters. I looked at a bunch of different tier lists, and these were all the fighters I could come up with. Stay tuned for part 2. I'm going to be going over the ratings for all the female influencer boxers in the scene. Subscribe for more boxing content and updates. The support is much appreciated. Thank you for watching. Peace.